just a genre of music, it's a way of life. It's the sound of rebellion, freedom, and limitless potential. But behind the flashing lights, packed concerts, and screaming fans, there is another darker side of scandal, broken dreams, and betrayal. That is the story behind the music, where fame is bought in advance and trust is a luxury. Welcome to the dark secrets of rock and roll. Scandals, fame, and betrayal. The excess is always something that the rock and roll genre has been all about. From the day it was conceived in the 1950s, drug addiction and alcoholism were part of the way of life, a rebellion. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Jim Morrison were the personifications of such excess. Their art was without question, but so was their self-destructive nature. Hendrix, arguably the greatest guitarist of all time, was not immune to the ravages of addiction. His 27-year-old demise was a tragic testament to the lethal charm of rock and roll. The 27 Club, as it has come to be referred to, also counts other rock icons who perished at the same age. Casualties of their excess and stardom. Janis Joplin's raw, raspy vocals were silenced by heroin, and Jim Morrison's poetic heart was lost to the same lethal lifestyle. The careers of these musicians are forever marred by their premature deaths, a testament to the lethal combination of fame and addiction. Behind each successful rock band is a record company that brings them to fame, but at a cost. The other side of fame is usually to be seen in the cutthroat business of music deals. Rock icons such as Tom Petty and the Rolling Stones have complained openly about being taken advantage of by their own record companies. Tom Petty's court battle with his record label during the early 1980s was a cautionary story for future artists. He famously went bankrupt simply to get out from under the hands of an abusive contract. The Rolling Stones themselves had their share of betrayals when they found out they didn't own the rights to some of their largest hit songs due to shady contracts signed early on in their career. These betrayals stung not just their wallets, it nearly extinguished their creative spark. Yet numerous rock stars learned to fight back, battling their labels in courtrooms and on stage. Behind the tinsel glitz of rock and roll's legendary love affairs is a grimmer, sadder truth. For most rock stars, fame amplified personal relationships in ways that usually ended in heartbreaking tragedy. The passion that fueled their music also fueled their relationships into treacherous terrain of obsession, jealousy, addiction, and, in the end, tragedy. One of the most scandalous love affairs in rock and roll is quite possibly John Lennon and Yoko Ono's. Their affair captivated the world, but not always for the best reasons. Lennon was still married to his first wife, Cynthia, when he met Yoko, but next thing he knew, he was hopelessly in love with Yoko, an experimental artist who would completely change the course of his life. The two fell deeply in love, but their love was thoroughly condemned, especially by Lennon's fans. Most blamed the breakup of the Beatles on Yoko, saying she had come between Lennon and the rest of the band. But the world did not see the isolation that Lennon and Ono suffered, forced to stand together against a world that condemned their love. While the media constantly invaded their personal lives, the couple drew farther and farther away into their own world, and often resorted to taking drugs as an escape. The pressure was too great, and while Lennon clung to his love for Yoko, he also battled his own demons. In 1980, Lennon was assassinated outside his New York apartment building, leaving Yoko devastated and bereft. The world had lost one of its greatest rock heroes, but Yoko Ono's grief would never fade. When bands dissolve, it's not always due to art differences, it's about betrayal. Some of the most iconic rock and roll bands have had acrimonious breakups, with past band members turning into lifelong enemies. One of the best is the feud between Roger Waters and David Gilmour of Pink Floyd. After ruling the rock universe in the 1970s, artistic differences and interpersonal tensions pushed the two apart. Waters quit the band, and for decades they battled over rights to the Pink Floyd legacy,
Because I left the band in 1985, that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd.
With Waters even suing his former bandmates. The Eagles also had a sensational breakup in 1980. After decades of tension, founding members Don Henley and Glenn Frey had a nasty falling out. It took more than a decade for the band to make amends, and when they did, they famously charged fans outrageous ticket prices as a sarcastic apology for their decades-long absence. Betrayal among bands isn't just about money, it's personal. Some rock and roll scandals stun not only fans but the world. Perhaps the most infamous act of rock decadence was the time Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page was discovered to have been having an affair with a 14-year-old girl during the band's peak popularity. Illegal to be sure, the act was too prevalent in the world of rock. Another involved the Who drummer Keith Moon, who lived a life of complete debauchery. Moon's decadence was the stuff of legend, but one night in 1970 became tragedy. At a party, Moon drove over and killed his bodyguard and friend. The accident haunted him for the remainder of his life, and his out-of-control lifestyle only escalated until he died at 32. Such scandals remind us that behind the music, the decadence of the rock star lifestyle all too often concealed a darker truth. The heavy price of fame may seem like the ultimate dream, but for other rock stars, it was a nightmare. The pressure of constant touring, recording, and living in the public eye wore down their mental health. Depression, anxiety, and loneliness became too common a refrain in their lives. Freddie Mercury, the flashy lead singer of Queen, struggled with his sexuality and the scrutiny of the public. On stage, he was larger than life, but behind closed doors, he was struggling with loneliness and fear of being judged. His tragic death from AIDS in 1991 was a heartbreaking loss, but it highlighted the need for mental health awareness among artists. The same can be said of Kurt Cobain's diaries, which revealed the extent of his depression. For all his phenomenal talent and success, he couldn't outrun the mental and emotional demons that killed him. Fame is seen as the ultimate dream, but for some rock stars, it's a double-edged sword with a price tag no one could have envisioned. The world of rock and roll may be filled with incredible music, but beneath the surface lies a world of betrayal, scandals, and tragedy. From toxic relationships to public meltdowns, rock stars have paid a heavy price for their fame. The dark secrets of rock and roll show us that no matter how bright the spotlight shines, there's always a shadow lurking just behind it. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the darker side of rock and roll, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more gripping stories from the world of music. Thanks for watching.